Hello! If you've clicked on this video, that means that you are probably looking to compete in your very first bodybuilding show. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name's Lewis, and this year I competed in my very first bodybuilding season as a natural bodybuilding athlete. I competed in 3 natural shows across New South Wales, and let's just say, I didn't do too badly, okay? I did all right. Now, if you're new to my channel, I did vlog the entirety of my prep, including the 3 show day vlogs. So go and check them out if you haven't already to get a bit better of an understanding of what actually goes on behind the scenes during a bodybuilding prep. Now, the reason for this video is because I wish that before I had actually started my very first bodybuilding prep, that I knew these things going into it. And I do believe that if you are going into your very first bodybuilding prep, knowing these 5 things are going to help you so much with moving forwards and just moving through the bodybuilding prep itself. So without further ado, these are the 5 things you need to know before starting your very first bodybuilding prep. All right, first and foremost, we've got cost. Now, it seems appropriate to start with cost because if you can't afford to do a bodybuilding prep, you just can't do one, right? And let me be the first to tell you, a bodybuilding prep is so damn expensive. Oh my God. Now, you've probably heard a few people tell you this already, but when I tell you that it is expensive and it adds up over time and you end up spending a lot more money than you initially thought, I'm telling you that that's the case, right? I was definitely shocked at how much money I ended up spending across the 25 weeks of prep. Now, I'm gonna break down the costs of my bodybuilding prep with you guys, and just know I didn't necessarily go about it in the cheapest of fashions, right? I competed in 3 shows, 2 of which were out of my hometown. I had a coach for 25 weeks. There are a lot of things that you can do differently that would make the experience cheaper, but just know that you are going to spend thousands, right? Thousands on this endeavor. Oh God, I didn't have fun breaking down the costs. Oh, I tell you what. If cost and spending a lot of money on this endeavor is gonna bother you, if it really is stressful and bothering you, you probably should reconsider doing a bodybuilding prep, right? Because for me, I never once thought about the cost. It was annoying, obviously, the more things popped up and the more money that different federations try to pinch off you and all those sorts of things, of course. But not once did I ever reconsider doing the entire thing because it was going to be expensive, right? So this is why it's the first thing I'm bringing up, because if cost bothers you, maybe reconsider another time when you have the funds to fund the prep, right? So the most expensive cost across the 25 weeks was for my coach. Now, I am not someone that's gonna sit here and encourage anyone, especially in their first prep, to coach themselves, right? I feel as though there's only a very small amount of people that could go into their very first bodybuilding prep and do it successfully through coaching themselves. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna have a lot of emotion come into play, especially at the back end of prep. You're gonna be tired, you're gonna be hungry, and you are the one that decides what you do with your body. Emotion is gonna play a huge role into that, right? You need someone that can tell you you're in your head. You need someone that can sit there and go, we're looking great, when you might think you're looking terrible, right? I would definitely recommend a coach. Now, my coach isn't the cheapest, but across 20 weeks of bodybuilding prep, you are gonna spend some serious money paying a coach each week. Now, I spent a total of $2,500 on just coaching alone. Then next is your registration with your federation, right? Now, I competed in 2 different federations, the ICN and ANB. Now, the more federations you compete in, the more that this is going to cost, right? Just, you have to register as an athlete for 12 months with any federation, doesn't matter. And they're all cost, a little bit different, but normally ballpark about $200 each. So for the ICN, it was $180. For A and B, it was $200. Now, that's just simply the cost to register as an athlete. If you want to enter a show, that costs also. And the way that these federations tend to work is your very first class that you pay for costs $200 normally, or it's the biggest fee because it's essentially your entry into the show. Then every other additional class you do will cost about $80 to $90. So for show 1, I spent $440 on 4 different classes. For show 2, I spent $380 on 3 different classes and an individual posing routine. And for show 3, I spent $340 on 3 different classes, which means the total for the 3 shows that I competed in was $1,160. Ouch. Now, I do encourage you to compete in more than just one show, right? It's a very long time to sacrifice to just get up for 10 minutes once and that be it, right? But I encourage you to compete in as many shows as financially possible, right? Because just adding on an extra show, right? Like I added on Nationals as an extra show, was only going to do 2, ended up costing an extra $340, right? It's easy to sit there in the moment and say, yeah, just we'll do a third show. But then you realize that's going to cost another $340, right? It's going to cost hundreds more. So you have to factor that in. Then we have the tans. Tans were $250 a pop. So for every show, you need a new tan, base coat and top coat, and they are $250 every time. So I did 3 shows, so that is $750 on spray tans. Yes. Now, some people do tan themselves. I absolutely don't recommend you do that, right? I couldn't imagine the stress. I heard of one guy told me at Nationals that he tanned himself and they used their own tanner and they're up till midnight doing it, right? It's the stress you don't need, right? You pay for tan from tanning experts, and trust me, it's just so much better, right? Don't tan yourself. Then of course, we can't forget your trunks. Now I competed in both bodybuilding and classic. So I had to get bodybuilding trunks and classic trunks, and they're $60 each. So $120 on bodybuilding trunks. But for the A and B show, I needed to get A and B specific classic trunks, right? They have their little emblem on them in order to do classic at A and B. So I had to spend another $60 on one pair of classic trunks for one show. So I spent $180 on trunks. Now, other sort of additional expenses, which would vary heavily sort of person to person, whether or not you want them, but photos ended up costing me a total of $500. I believe they were $150 at each of the ICN shows and $200 at the A and B show. So it ended up costing me $500. Look, if you want the photos, you can get them. I definitely would encourage you to get photos at least one show, right? Professional photos are awesome, and that's your moment forever, right? Captured right there in 4K. And I'm so grateful I got photos at each one of the shows, right? This is not a purchase that I regret doing. But for you, you may have someone there that can, you know, film and take photos on their phone, and like, it can be good enough, but please consider getting professional photography because, like I said, you're only in this stage possibly once in your entire life. Make sure it's worth it by capturing the moment. And lastly, 2 of the shows that I did were in Sydney, which means we had to get accommodation. Now, accommodation costed roughly $500 as well. I didn't actually calculate it perfectly. I think it was anywhere from $500 to $600, right? There was a bit of a mix up too on the very last show day where we ended up buying accommodation for another place on our last night. You would have seen it in the vlogs, but it was about $500. I'm gonna average it to about there. If you know someone in a different state or a different city and you can stay with them, do it, right? It's just one less expense to have to worry about, but that may not be a possibility for you. You have to get accommodation. You have to normally get accommodation somewhere that's got, you know, microwaves and kettles and things that you're gonna need for your food and everything like that, and a fridge as well. Obviously, you need a fridge too. So that brings the total cost for my very first bodybuilding season to $5,970. We'll round it up to say 6,000, right? 6K spent on just getting up on a stage a couple times in trunks, tanned up, just to do some interpretive dancing, right? So look, it's a lot of money. That's the one thing I've got to reiterate to you. It is a lot of money, and if it bothers you, reconsider, right? Think about it. There's definitely cheaper ways to go about it, but it's gonna cost you at the end of the day. Now, moving on to number 2. This is a big one. It is an important one. It is one that I pushed throughout the whole of prep, but I lost touch of as well. It is don't go in looking for a result. God, there are so many people that come into a bodybuilding prep and they are gunning for their pro card, right? In their very first bodybuilding season, or they're gunning for an overall win, or they want to take home gold. Now, I get it, right? As someone that's competitive, I 100% understand coming in wanting to get a result. It's a long time to sacrifice to potentially walk away with no medals, right? That could happen. So you have to go in expecting the unexpected. You have to go in understanding that you are not promised anything by simply just having done the hard work for 20 weeks, right? Everyone that gets up on that stage on the day has done the same 20-week prep that you have, right? You have to realize that. You don't just get rewarded for having done that. And that's just part of life. Sometimes you're not guaranteed a result. And I think that's the beauty of the sport, is that you can have put in the most work over those 20 weeks, more than anyone else up on that stage, and it still isn't enough to take home a win, right? That is just the reality of it. And if you go in gunning for a result, it's gonna take away so much from the overall experience if you don't get it, right? Because anything other than that overall win or that pro card is gonna be a failure, when in reality, you managed to get yourself up there and do something that literally 99.9% of the rest of the world is not willing to ever do in their life, right? People don't want to sacrifice food. They don't want to sacrifice time with friends and family. They don't want to have to do cardio every day. They don't want to feel miserable, tired. They don't want to get in that absolute peak shape of their lives because it's hard, right? Now you're winning. Everyone on show day has already won because you're there, you've made it, and you're getting up and you're showing off your hard work. You're not going in for a result. You're going up with other like-minded people that have done the same thing to show off your hard work to friends, family, people that doubted you, questioned you, obviously supported you, but also maybe didn't get what you were doing. That's your moment to get up there and show them, hey, this is what I did for 20 weeks. This is all the blood, sweat, and tears that I put into it for 20 plus weeks up here on display. I lost sight of the importance of this. I got a few good results in my first 2 shows. I won an overall in Newcastle and I ended up getting a very close second at A and B and was in the overalls for both the classic and the men's bodybuilding there. And I think I won the juniors as well. So I was getting a lot of wins and I was getting a lot of, wind up my sail to push through to nationals and possibly take home some sort of a win there. And I was really gunning for the juniors overall bodybuilding title, but I ended up falling short. I came 3rd in that class, and because I'd put so much emphasis on the win at that show, it really punched me in the gut when it happened, and it took away from that moment, right? Obviously, thankfully, I was able to talk with my coach, my girlfriend, Guy as well, and we sort of reiterated the importance of what we'd done and what actually was the goal, and the fact that we were even at nationals when it wasn't a thought to start with, it was added on at the end, was already a win enough in itself, right? We're getting exposure, enough for me to go, that was the biggest win on the day, right? That was the win that I needed, that's what I wanted. But if you start winning in those first few shows, don't let it get to your head like it did for me. It is never about the result. Now, moving on to number 3, it is the monotony that gets to you, not the lack of food. Everyone thinks prep is just all about eating nothing and being starving 24/7. Now, that's not to say that's not the case, because it definitely is the case, right? But it is not what gets to you. What gets to you is being hungry and being fatigued as a result of eating a lot less food, but having no excuse to not do the things that you have to do in your day-to-day. Not get the steps in, not get the cardio in, not get your gym session in, right? Not get all your water and your food and your salt in. There's no excuses throughout a bodybuilding prep to not get those things done. And the thing is, when you do the same thing over and 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 over again for 20 weeks straight, it gets boring, it gets hard, it gets monotonous, right? It gets so mentally challenging to just keep doing it, knowing that you're closing in on that illustrious show day, but it just takes forever, and it takes even longer when you're a few weeks out and you know there's food coming up, because peak week's coming and you're hungry and now you're thinking about the food. Those last few weeks before your show day are the absolute hardest, because food's at an all-time low, cardio and steps are at an all-time high, and you're that close. That time just drags. It absolutely drags, and you will get through the day and you'll have posed and you'll have done everything and you'll get to the end of it and you will be so exhausted and so thankful to get in bed. But then you wake up the next day and it's all reset and you have to do the exact same thing over again. You have to do it again and again and again and again. That is what gets to you. It can make you shitty. I found that that's what was the biggest challenge, was getting to the end of the day and being like, thank God I've done everything. But now I know when I wake up in the morning, I've got to do it all over again, right? Because I would get home from work and I would be like, okay, I still need 2,000 steps. I still need to go do my cardio. I only have 1 meal left to eat for the day and I'm starving. And I also have to do my posing. I have to practice my posing too. So it used to be a slug. You'd get home from a day of work exhausted, still had more work to do, right? It's hard. That is what is the hardest part. Moving on to number 4, posing is the hardest part of the whole process, but it is the most important. Posing, you're gonna learn to hate. You're gonna absolutely hate posing when it's all said and done. I absolutely resented coming home from work and knowing that I had to come upstairs and do about 20 to 30 minutes of posing, right? Running through my individual routine, but then also my classic and bodybuilding sort of mandatory poses and getting through them and building up your endurance, right? Posing becomes a form of really, really hard cardio towards the end of it, right? You are so exhausted that holding poses for a few seconds is so absolutely tiring. And not to mention all the check-ins you do. You'll check in every single morning, and on a high day, you end up checking in after literally every meal. So you'll do about 6 check-ins across a high day. It used to make high days so much worse for me. Even though I knew I had more food, I knew, oh my God, I've got to go and pose again, right? It was just so annoying, and it just really made me crazy. But I am so thankful that I put in the work to improve on my posing, because on show day, there are not many things you can control. You're there, you've done the work, right? There's no point worrying about if you're conditioned enough or not, right? You can't change that. Show day's here, that's what prep's about. On show day, the only factor that is in your control on that day is your posing, is getting up and presenting yourself, presenting the hard work, right? And if it sucks, it shows. And there were so many people that I had competed with that if they had posed a little bit better, they honestly would have taken out overall wins. They would have probably placed a lot better than they did, but they just couldn't present themselves properly. And that's the biggest thing that you're judged on the day, is how you pose, right? It's obviously how your physique looks, but if you can't show it off properly, it doesn't matter how big you are, right? It's going to hold you back 100%. And it's definitely a skill that you have to develop over time. My posing sucked so bad at the start of prep. It was horrible. And I remember being worried, very worried, when prep started, going, it's not very good. And I've seen guys pose on a bodybuilding stage and it is nowhere near that level, but I just kept at it every day, 20 to 30 minutes, posing, getting better, watching posing content, trying to become the best poser that I could in that time frame, and it paid off, right? Not only for the sense of knowing how to position my body in space, but also building up the endurance to be able to hold those poses when you're starving and you're tired and your muscles are cramping. That is so difficult. Posing is an art form. It is almost worthwhile investing in a posing coach. I didn't do that, but in some ways, I kind of wish I did. It would have made my individual routine at A&B probably that little bit better. But at the end of the day, I'm happy with the work that I put in, and it's just about doing it over and over and over and over again, regardless of how much you want to do it, right? You've just got to get it done. And lastly, number 5, I'm going through this a bit at the moment, but the post-show blues are tough. Now, I thought I was going to come out of my whole bodybuilding prep perfectly fine. I had a plan. I had my meal plan ready. I had my new training block ready. I was ready for training to return to normal and be, pushing hard again. I was ready for more food. I was ready to get back to my normal life, right? I was ready to not feel like this exhausted 80-year-old man anymore, right? I was ready to get my life back on track. Little did I know that it doesn't just take a few days of eating more food in order for that to happen, right? There is a lot that happens after your prep and after your show days that is really hard to deal with physically, but also mentally. Now, obviously, when you compete in your shows and you have your show days, they are massive dopamine spikes, right? The days themselves are so positive and so good. You've got all these people coming out to support you, all these people messaging you supportive messages, right? You're in the best shape of your life. I don't think days on planet Earth get much better than a show day, to be completely honest with you. All 3 were some of the best days of my entire life. Coming away from that and going back to normality and back to how things were is a big adjustment. That's really hard. You are going to have a massive dopamine crash. You're probably going to feel like shit. And there's other things that also lead to you feeling like shit, right? You're going to see increases in body fat. You're going to lose your tan, right? That's one thing that I didn't realize, is I was tanned consistently for like a month or more on end. And I didn't realize I was getting used to and adjusting to this new color of skin I had. And obviously being tanned is more aesthetic than being as pale and white as I am. And then when you add extra body fat into it, you end up feeling like you've gained 10 kilos and you look like absolute shit. Even though you don't, even though you only put on 2-3 kilos, you still feel horrible regardless of how the food's got you feeling now that you're eating more. That still plays a massive toll on your mental health. Your hormones may take a little bit longer, especially as natural athletes, because we don't have enhancements in order to adjust that. We have to just simply wait it out. You have to get your body fat back to a normal level, increase dietary fats, right? Do everything that you can in order to increase your testosterone back up and get back to feeling good again. Now, I'm currently 2 months post-show and they haven't fully returned back to normal to me right now. I still feel flat. I still feel sluggish. I definitely noticed that my libido is lower than it was prior. It just simply can take time, right? It can simply just take longer than a few weeks of more food in order for that to improve again. Now, it's important that you monitor this with blood tests, and obviously having someone that can read the blood tests so that you can monitor your hormones over time. Getting to that level of body fat, it's not healthy, okay? It is not healthy and it is going to tank your hormones, and they just may take a little bit longer to return to normal than expected. And another big adjustment is returning to your old eating habits, right? It is very hard to come out of bodybuilding prep and control the food noise that you're going to have, knowing now that you don't have any restrictions. So what you're trying to do is trying to restrict binge eating, but at the same time, massive restriction on eating the foods that you want to eat at that time is also causing a toxic relationship with food, right? You need a healthy way to regulate getting back to normal eating habits. Now, it's important that you have a meal plan that's going to bring back variety and different food sources post-show, because obviously you've eaten the same thing every single day and it's likely those meals have looked very similar for a very long time. It's important to get a bit of variety back, right? I wanted red meat, I wanted potatoes, sweet potato, I wanted yogurt again. I wanted all these things back in, and I finally got them post-show, and it definitely helped with controlling food noise. But I did also need to return to normal in terms of knowing that it was okay to go out for dinner with my girlfriend once a week, and knowing that it was okay to have a beer with my mates at the pub when we're watching the footy, right? But it's hard to adjust to those things when for so long you've learnt the habit of no, you can't do those because you're getting up on a bodybuilding stage. No, it's not normal for you to go and do that. It's not normal to feel that way, right? You need to adjust back into normality, being a functioning member of society again. It's okay to go and do those things, and you have to tell yourself that it is okay. Now, the other thing to touch on is the big post-show silence, right? Imagine this. For 20 plus weeks, you've been building to this big moment where you're gonna get up on a bodybuilding stage and you're gonna be in the best shape of your life. And you've got all these people that are really excited to see what all your sacrifice has done and how it's gonna pay off. You get up there, you have the best day of your life. Everyone's there, everyone's cheering you on. Everyone's so happy for you. And then all of a sudden, nothing. Crickets. Absolutely nothing. Everyone goes back to their normal lives. Everyone gets on with their life and moves forward, except for you. Now, that has been one of the biggest and toughest things to adjust to mentally for me, because posting on social media as frequently as I do, when you're posting your physique and you've got all these people that are looking at you and you start to see the numbers go up, more likes on posts, more comments, more people in your DMs supporting you, more people cheering you on, more reshares, more reposts, and then all of a sudden you post a physique update and you're a bit watery and you're 5 kilos up and you're pasty again, and everyone goes, oh, okay. And then you just see those numbers plummet. It is really, really hard to adjust to that. Now, obviously you don't go into a bodybuilding show for the applause, but it comes with the grounds, right? It comes with doing a bodybuilding show. You are going to get more and more people behind you, supporting you. And then all of a sudden, when it's all done, they're going to stop, right? They're likely going to not have anything to cheer you on for because you're done, right? That's it. It's all over and done with. Moving forwards, you have to prioritize what is actually important at the end of a bodybuilding show. But the ways I've been dealing with it and moving forwards from it have been from placing my emphasis back onto training and improving training and watching the numbers go up in the gym. Training is now fun again. It turned to absolute chaos and just high rep, low intensity nonsense at the end of prep. And now I get to go in and I get to push sets hard again to, 0 to 1 RAR and just see the strength and the numbers go up instead of going backwards or holding for so long. The second thing is surrounding myself with people that I actually care about and I actually care for the opinions of, not people that I think that I care for the opinions of, right? So my friends, my family, my girlfriend, getting back to, hanging out with them more and spending more quality time with them and making sure I'm putting enough emphasis into their lives, and they've put so much emphasis into my life for 20 weeks. And it's now time for me to repay that back and get back to a normal, healthy relationship with the people that I care about. And the other thing is accepting that you can't stay stage lean and be this conditioned freak 24/7, 365, right? It doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, you're not going to hold that conditioning that you have up on stage coming out of a bodybuilding prep. How long you hold it for is definitely up to you, but it's going to go away eventually, right? It's not healthy. Trying to justify staying in that level of conditioning long term is an unhealthy and toxic belief. And it's just simply vain and holding all this emphasis on how you look as a person and not how you actually are and behave as a person and who you actually are, not what you just look like. Slowly but surely though, we are getting back to normal and we are getting back to having fun with life again. So they're the 5 things, and hopefully that has helped you in some way if you are moving into your very first bodybuilding prep or are halfway through your very first bodybuilding prep or are nearly done your first bodybuilding prep. Hopefully that advice has helped you in some way, shape or form in order to know what's coming up when you finish your shows, or know what might be expected of you and what might happen that you might not be ready for during prep, right? And if it has, and you're new around here, drop a like and please subscribe, hit that notification bell. I'm gonna have new YouTube videos coming hopefully on a weekly basis, whether that be informative content or more vlogs. I've got travel vlogs coming at the end of the year. I've got some collaborative content that I'm planning with some people, right? There's lots that's gonna start coming to this YouTube channel. So if you are new, definitely stick around. It's gonna be fun, and I will catch you in the next one.